Hey, Alex Williams of the New Stack here with Tony Tam. You're with Smart Bear, and tell us a little about yourself, Tony.
Sure. So I run products for Smart Bear for the Swagger side. I'm responsible for the open source piece for Swagger and also a SaaS product called SwaggerHub. And regarding this, I started Swagger, the project, in 2011 as a side project for a company I was working at called Wordnik. So I'm very happy to be working on this full time now and excited with some of the things that we've done. And very excited here to see the adoption that we've been getting from Swagger and the Open API initiative.
Excellent. I stopped by your booth yesterday and you were showing me the work you're doing with serverless type architecture. Can you tell us about that? That's really what I'm interested in most.
Yep. So just this week we released for SwaggerHub a integration with Amazon Web Services. And this comes in two flavors, one for a traditional proxy model, so integration with their API gateway, but most excitingly is an integration with Amazon Lambda. So let me describe what that does. So using SwaggerHub, you can edit a definition and it describes your API and everything about it, how you make calls and parameters and that sort of thing. And what we did with Lambda was make a bridge so that when you save your definition in SwaggerHub, it can automatically push that definition up to Amazon API Gateway, and then it will configure every one of the routes to point to either an existing Lambda function or it will create one for you. And when it does this, it'll even comment the code and say, here are the variables you can expect in it. So the neat thing is that we've taken this whole idea of design lifecycle, API lifecycle, and brought it to state-of-the-art cloud computing, which many of us feel that the future is truly going to be serverless. So if we can facilitate that, so that you can do this in one single step rather than configuring in this user interface, updating a file here, and that sort of thing. If you can do it in one place in one step, it's just going to facilitate this motion to serverless.
So how did you do this? Tell us about what you built.
SwaggerHub has internally a mechanism called a plugin, and a plugin can fire on certain events. So we made an event plugin for when you save that will take the Swagger definition. Very importantly, it will convert the Swagger definition into a format that Amazon supports. So Amazon does not support every single feature of Swagger or Open API spec. So we actually convert it into something that is compatible with Amazon, and then we use their public APIs to push that definition directly to Gateway. So they have a really nice set of APIs and well-documented ones for pushing that definition up. We also will add some extensions in the spec so that you can see exactly what we're doing. So there's no magic or nothing behind the scenes in doing this. Once it's up in Amazon, we'll create the Lambda functions if they don't exist. We map those based on a thing in the Swagger specification called the operation ID. So it's a way to uniquely identify operations in an API, and then do the wiring between them.
So tell us about the plugin itself.
Yeah, so the plugin itself is written by the SwaggerHub team, and it is essentially an interceptor in this API lifecycle. So when you save, there's a chain of things that happen, one of which is if there is a plugin that is configured in SwaggerHub, it can do something with it. And in this case, that something is to connect directly to the Amazon region that you choose and then call their APIs as needed to create the API and then the Lambda functions.
So that's when you start to do the mapping, essentially, of the open APIs to what AWS supports.
That's correct. And so if you've gone through the process ever of configuring Lambda to map to an API definition, which Amazon supports Open API spec natively, it's a really tedious process. And through the beauty of public APIs that are well documented and orchestration by computers, we're going to take all of that monkey business out of the process and just let the developers work on a great API design and then the logic that backs up that design.
Is there a need for the developer to get underneath the hood at all?
At this stage, no. We might expose some other advanced features in doing so, We're going to do that based on the feedback we get. But right now, it's a very simple mechanism to do this whole configuration. Now, of course, they need to implement their business logic. I mean, if we could do that automatically, we'd be rich. That's a pretty simple thing to do, and that's what engineers do best, is solve problems. And what they don't like to do, in my opinion at least, good engineers don't like to sit around and click buttons and user interfaces to wire things up. So I think that taking that step out is going to just accelerate the development process a lot, and take away human errors as well, because that's that clicking around in some UI, no matter how good it is, all day, is you're likely going to mess something up.
So, with every new technology, there's lots of opportunity, but there's also downsides to consider. What are the downsides you guys are considering with these new kind of serverless platform that essentially runs on the resources available?
Yeah, so I think that our first integration was with Amazon. They're, I think, right now the biggest provider of this type of feature. IBM has a great integration called OpenWhisk. Google has a similar technology we heard about at GlueCon. So, there is a risk that, we chose the wrong one. I don't think we did. I think that there's always, there's going to be some learning curve here for people, not from using the integration or not from using the idea, but just wrapping their heads around what does it mean when I don't need to do all of these things that I normally had to do, and how do I work in this environment called Lambda? Because it's very isolated. It's not a server that's running all the time and can communicate with all this other stuff. It does promote a better programming design, typically. So it's going to take time, I think, for a lot of people to get used to that. That's not necessarily a SwaggerHub / AWS integration issue. So I'm not really worried about that. I think it's more of an education that's happening right now across the developer world about how to use serverless technology. There's also a risk that the DevOps guys aren't going to have as much to do, but that's just the way it works, right?
I'm sure there'll be things that will keep them busy.
That's right. They can become data scientists.
Right. Well, actually, there's so much more data now in the systems then. Well, great. So this is available now?
It is now on SwaggerHub.com. It's a free service. There will be more integrations, like I mentioned, to other cloud providers, and a number of other lifecycle tools that will be put in that should add a lot of value to the API development lifecycle.
I guess one of the things I'm thinking about, maybe in conclusion, we could just talk about this, is the context here to the rest of the market. Right? We're on this, train of discussion about containers and container platforms, and how that kind of, how those are being built out. How platforms are being built out using, Kubernetes or Mesos or any service from the HashiCorp folks or whoever it is. How do you view serverless and kind of in that context?
That's a great question. I mean, I think that no matter what serverless evolves to, it will certainly not be the only way to write software. I think it'll be a very convenient way for a lot of services to deploy. So you don't pay anything when it's not being used. You pay a lot if it's used a ton, that sort of thing. But I think that the self-hosted Docker world, there's different types of services that you need to manage in that fashion. So, Lambda isn't made for Hadoop, right? This is not meant for that kind of workflow. So to do that, until people stop using Hadoop, they're going to have to run their own software some other way. And the container world is a great way to do that in a more durable and dependable fashion. So I don't see that going away. I do think, though, that we will start seeing, and this might already be out, and I'm just, slow, but from OpenStack and other providers for deployment technologies, something that mimics this containerless Lambda type deployment. So I think that there's opportunity to bring those the same type or analogous technology